Hello and welcome. I'm Kathryn Tucker, a senior nutrition consultant with Administration for Community Living. Is your organization struggling to meet the increased demands of feeding older adults and balancing your budget? Would you like to expand services and programs, but you struggle due to increases in things like expenses for staffing, supplies, and food costs? If you are, then I'm glad you've joined us today. This webinar is part of a series to help the senior nutrition program with containing costs. And today's webinar is the third in the series, and we'll specifically focus on how using reusable trays can help contain cost. So cost containment may seem like a new term. However, it covers strategies and measures aimed at controlling program expenses while maintaining or enhancing quality, services, and/or programs. It can cover various practices such as enhancing efficiency, negotiating, cost reduction. It can include optimizing resources, even adopting technology. And I know that sounds extensive, but cost containment is essential for ensuring financial stability and promoting the sustainability of any nonprofit, government, or for-profit business. When you think about money your program spends on disposables, we must remember that that is money that's being thrown away each and every day by those participants. What if you were able to save money by using reusable trays instead of providing throwaway options each day? Every dollar saved allows you to offer the best food possible. It allows you to expand services or even offer some extras to make your program special, like dressing up the tables or offering fresh produce to dress up the meal. It isn't just about saving money, but saving it being able to offer the best quality with the most effective delivery. And we know that studies have shown that the second most important reason people attend congregate programs is based on the quality of the meal. And we see increasing numbers of generations in diversity within our older adult population. With that comes changes in expectations and increased interest in those flexible meal deliveries, which we in the senior nutrition program are growing more accustomed to, mainly due to the new innovations being created every single day. Couple that with the increased cost of doing business, and we have to remain realistic. It is important that when we are looking at our budget, we should focus changes that don't limit the human factor for which our services are intended. Finding innovative ways to maintain or enhance service levels while folding in cost containment methods is crucial for staying sustainable in this ever-changing environment. Now, I'm thrilled to have a wonderful speaker for you today to guide us through reusable trays and how they can help our network navigate cost containment challenges they may be facing. Alexis Goldsmith is the National Organizing Director for Beyond Plastics. She graduated from Indiana University Bloomington. Alexis managed a farm and served the food pantries for the Capital District, and she has worked in the media and has produced hundreds of interviews, largely around the petrochemicals and environmental activism. She co-founded the Hudson Mohawk Environmental Action Network, a grassroots consortium fighting for environmental justice and indigenous rights along the Hudson River. Today, Alexis will be presenting using reusable trays and its connection to cost containment. Alexis, thank you so much for being on the call today. I look forward to your presentation. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Kathryn, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, everybody. My name is Alexis, and this issue is very dear to my heart, both for the environmental reasons, but also for the quality of life for seniors. My degree is actually in dietetics, even though I did not end up pursuing that field. So my knowledge, though, has lent to my work in this area of reusable containers for senior meals. So Beyond Plastics, just to set the stage, we are a nonprofit project based out of Bennington College, and our mission is to end plastic pollution. And we do that by addressing the primary causes, the root cause of plastic pollution, which is overproduction and a dependence on single-use products. So one of the reasons that we advocate for switching to reusables is because it ends up reducing the disposal of single-use plastics that end up in the environment, accumulate in landfills, and sometimes are burned in incinerators. And this is a perfect solution for Meals on Wheels programs because not only is it reducing the environmental impact of the program, it's actually very workable for, for senior meal programs. It's actually very workable because senior meal programs are generally a closed loop system where you're seeing the clients regularly. It's not like a restaurant takeout system where the customer or the guest is picking up the meal and you may never see them again. And I'm going to show you in my presentation today that reusables for your senior meal program have tremendous potential to affect your bottom line, to save you money, and also improve the quality of the experience for the guest. So reusables are green in more ways than one. They're better for the environment, they can save you money, and generally they provide a better quality of the experience for the client. So just upfront, because I know everyone is most interested in the cost containment aspect of reusables for Meals on Wheels, for senior meal programs, excuse me. Let's take a look at the breakdown. So this is just an example of a cost comparison for single-use plastic trays. I know most programs that I've talked to use the Oliver brand trays or the trays with the film over them. So I've based this comparison on those trays, though I know lots of programs use different. They might use the aluminum trays or the aluminum containers. They might use polystyrene, but this is based on those black plastic trays with the film on them. So for a program that is serving 350 clients 5 days a week, they're serving approximately 200,000 meals a year. They're going to need 200,000 single-use trays. Now, at a cost of 30 cents per tray, that really adds up over the course of the year to $60,000. And you're paying that each year because you have to keep buying the single-use trays. For the reusable trays, however, factoring in that some of the trays are going to get lost, you would have to purchase for this number of clients 840 trays to serve them. Now, the calculation of how many trays that you require for a client is 2 trays per client plus 20% on top of that. And that is to account that some of the trays are going to get lost. You're not going to get every tray back. So estimating that you pay approximately $10 for a reusable tray, that's about middle of the road for the reusable products out there. You're going to pay $8,400 upfront for those trays. And then every year thereafter, you're going to buy 20% of that. So to replace the trays that you're losing. And I hope that makes sense. And then you might have to buy a commercial dishwasher if you don't have one already to make life easier for washing the trays. But you can see, even with that upfront expense, the savings in year one is in the tens of thousands of dollars. And this is for a relatively small program. And then in year two and every year thereafter, you're saving even more because you don't have to make the initial investment upfront. So the way it works for home delivered meals is quite simply you're incorporating reverse logistics in addition to your existing program for getting the trays back. You're cooking and preparing the meals and packaging them just as you would normally. Now, when the staff or the volunteer drops off that home delivered meal, they're going to pick up the used tray from the day before, and the client needs only to rinse the tray. They don't need to wash them. They're going to pick up the used tray, take them back to the kitchen, and then at the kitchen, they are washed and dried overnight. And I'm going to get into a little more detail on this. So the first option, and this is probably the most feasible for programs, is to just buy your own reusable trays and wash them in-house. And if you're cooking your own meals, you probably already have the equipment to wash dishes. So the pros of this option is it's the most cost effective because you own the trays and you own the dishwashing. So you're in control of the cost. It significantly reduces the plastic waste that is being generated by the program. And I think this is understated, but very important, that it improves the food presentation and the client's experience. I think for many seniors where this is like their main source of nutrition and their quality of the food is improving their quality of life, having their meal in an actual dish rather than a plastic, microwavable tray, really makes it feel just elevated, elevates the meal, makes it feel better. And I know I would like to have that as part of my experience. And by reducing waste, you're actually reducing greenhouse gas emissions, even with the reverse logistics of getting the trays back to the kitchen. And that's because we're not using single-use trays. We're reducing the raw materials that is needed to produce the trays. So we're creating a truly circular system here and not just a linear disposable system. And it also reduces strain on municipal resources because we are reducing waste that's going to landfills and incinerators. So the cons of this program are you have to make that upfront investment. I know a lot of programs, they're on a very tight budget month to month, and it is not a small thing to find an extra $10,000 to buy trays upfront. So the way to overcome that might be to phase in the reusable trays, like on a route, one route at a time, for example. It does require a dishwasher and kitchen space, and it does require a change in the staffing. So normally, if your kitchen staff leave right after the meals go out the door, somebody has to be there when they come back, when the trays come back to the kitchen to wash them. The other way to do reusable trays is with a dishwashing service. So the idea here is that all of the washing, the sanitizing is done for you. So the way this works is you don't own the trays. You're basically renting them or paying a use fee for each tray. And the idea is that the dishwashing service that you contract with is bringing trays to you in the morning, picking up the used trays in the afternoon, washing and sanitizing them, and recirculating those trays. And the program pays a wash fee on each tray. So pros, obviously no dishwasher is required. You don't need to buy the trays. It saves you space. It's still reducing plastic waste and greenhouse gas emissions, and you don't have to staff it. It really functions exactly the same on your end, on the program end, as the single-use trays. And it supports a reuse economy. So this is a community building relationship where I've seen programs that contract with dishwashing services. This is supporting businesses that are reducing waste, and they also provide services to other programs. So the cons, this can be more expensive because you still have to pay for each tray. You're not just, as opposed to owning it where you just pay once for each tray. And the service is not available in all areas. I've usually just seen these services available in metropolitan areas like New York City, Boston, San Francisco. But if you want to get in contact with me, I can see if there are options in your area. And you don't always get a choice on what kind of container. It may just be what the service can offer you. So with any system where you're getting reusable trays, the most important part for you is to get the trays back. That's what's going to save you money. That's what's going to reduce waste and greenhouse gas emissions. And that's what's going to keep the program of reuse successful. So I've talked to a lot of programs that are actually implementing and have implemented reusable trays, and this is what they do. They place a dishwasher safe label on the trays that instructs people where to return them. Sometimes they use a check system where the driver has their clients on a list and they check when they give a tray out and they check when the tray is returned. And that helps them to see if trays are not coming back, who's not returning the trays and what's the issue there so that it can be addressed. Programs also send periodic reminders to clients and their families through letters and phone calls. And they also, when a client is enrolling in the program, they explain how the reuse program works. And then if a particular recipient is not returning the trays for whatever reason, just provide a single-use tray going forward for that person. I understand that sometimes clients freeze meals, or they may forget, or the trays may become damaged. So just address that on a case-by-case basis. But in general, programs that I've talked to that are using reusable trays, they generally see a 20% loss, and that's a conservative estimate. So that's the high end, a 20% loss per year. And so with all of my calculations, that's what I have incorporated or considered when looking at the cost for reusable trays. The most important thing is to just make a plan before you start, and maybe start with just a route if that's more manageable for you at first. The tray loss is more likely to occur at the start of the program because, as with any habit change, it just takes time to get used to the different system. So make sure that you have a clear plan and you've communicated it with your staff, your volunteers, and your clients when you're switching to reusables. So here are some dishwashing, sanitation, and health considerations, which I get asked a lot about. So clients are asked to rinse the trays in all programs that I've seen. They don't require them to actually wash the trays because you're going to wash them in the kitchen. And then you can use a commercial dishwasher, or you can use the three compartment sink method where you're washing, rinsing, and sanitizing. If you're using a commercial dishwasher, this is the requirement for the outside rinse cycle. It's the same for your dishes that you're using to prepare the meals. You can work with your local health department to understand what the sanitizing requirements are for dishwasher versus the three compartment sink method. But the idea is dishwashing, it will save you money. And it actually surprisingly doesn't take that much time when I've talked to programs. A medium-sized program, like 350 clients, they can get their dishwashing done in less than an hour. The commercial dishwashers are very, very fast and efficient. And the other benefit of commercial dishwashers is the trays dry really quickly. I already mentioned this. Oh, yes. So when considering the reverse logistics of getting the trays back, you just have to note that you cannot put dirty trays in the same carrier as the trays that have the meals in them. So you just need a separate container in the car to bring the trays back, a designated container. And then trays must be air dried. So that's the other benefit of the commercial dishwasher. You can't towel dry them, but the commercial dishwashers, the temperatures that they reach mean the trays dry very quickly, and then you can just stack them for storage, which is important in tight kitchens. And then it's important to note that if you're already preparing and serving meals, a separate permit is not required to use reusable dishes. This is the same kind of idea as a restaurant where clients are eating, customers are eating meals that are served on reusable dishes and the restaurant washes the dishes. They don't need a separate permit for the dishes. We have a guide to reusables for senior meal programs that I will show you in just a moment, but here are some examples of where to buy trays. The material of the tray is definitely a consideration. For senior meals, I've only ever seen PET or polypropylene used, and while these are plastic, it's still better to reuse them than to use single-use plastics. You're still saving waste and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Now, the reason plastic is used for senior meal trays is because it fits the requirements. It's microwavable. It's not hot to the touch. It won't shatter if you drop it like glass would. And it's low cost. So just to give you an idea of the impact that you can have, and you can use this for grant writing as well when you're trying to get funding for reusable containers. I've based this on numbers from Meals on Wheels America, which served 2.4 million seniors, and that number has gone way up since 2018, I understand, because of the pandemic. But at least 646 million meals were served at 18. And if all of these meals were served in single-use plastic trays, that represents more than 45 million pounds of plastic waste and 1.1 million cubic yards of landfill space. So the reusable trays have tremendous potential to reduce these impacts. And I think that's a very compelling argument for fundraising and grants. As you can see from this graph, which, sorry, I put this right in the middle, plastic packaging makes up the majority of single-use plastics, 141 million metric tons every year. And because plastics are made from fossil fuels, that means we are basically pulling fossil fuels out of the ground to turn them into plastic, which then goes to landfills and incinerators. So this is where the greenhouse gas emission reductions come in if we switch from single-use plastics to reusable systems. And the last thing I want to mention, because our organization is an advocacy organization for reducing plastic pollution, we cannot recycle our way out of the plastic pollution problem. Plastics in the United States are recycled at a rate of just 6%. And all plastic is eventually disposed of. The reason is that plastic, when it is recycled, it can only be recycled once. And the material of the plastic degrades when it is recycled. So it's recycled once and then disposed of, and then new plastics are produced from fossil fuels. So the real solution to plastic pollution is to replace single-use with reuse. And again, that has a win-win for a win-win-win, win for the environment, win for programs because reusables save money, and win for municipalities because they're reducing landfills and reducing waste that goes to incinerators. So our full guide is available on our website at beyondplastics.org/Meals on Wheels. I understand that every program here is a Meals on Wheels program, but this is suitable for any home delivered meal program. It's also suitable for schools. Any kind of closed loop meal program can benefit from reusables. And in that guide, which I think most people here will be interested in, there is a cost savings calculator. So you can estimate how much you might save per year by switching to reusables with this calculator. So you have to go into the guide. You have to make a copy because this is a living document. Make a copy of this calculator, put in the information, the number of meals you serve per year, how many clients you have, what you're currently paying for single-use trays, and it will automatically calculate how much you could save if you switch to reusable trays. And then also down here, it will calculate how much plastic waste you would reduce, how much landfill space you would reduce by switching, which then you can use for grant writing and fundraising. Here's our social media handles and our website once again, as well as my email if you'd like to follow us on social media. If you'd like to get in touch, I would love to talk more, especially if you do plan to switch to reusables. I'm constantly looking for new lessons learned, new case studies. There's 4 case studies in the guide at programs who are actually using reusables, and you can get their lessons learned. So please get in touch if you enjoyed this program, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you. And I am so excited about this presentation. And working in food service for much of my career and seeing the difference with the reusables. Of course, in hospitals, we had reusables. That was pretty common. I've worked in schools where there wasn't reusables, but we actually incorporated some of those within the school, and it did make a difference. And there was some pushback with staff because they had to wash the trays, and initially they felt like it was just so much easier just to throw it away. But when you see how many bags of garbage that you're having to carry out and that extra, work that's getting put on you for carrying out bags and bags of garbage, that also carries into that with staffing. So I have a few questions that I would like to ask just as we wrap up. The first one is, how can you, using reusable trays, minimize administrative burdens?
So obviously there's a different system that you're using, and it's a little more complicated than single-use trays because with single use, they just go out the door and you never have to think about them
Mhm.
again. But with reusables, you definitely have to think about them because you want them back or you're gonna have to pay more and you're not going to get the environmental benefits. So the way to reduce the administrative cost, the administrative side of that, is to get everybody on board, everybody excited about reusables and the reasons why you're doing it. You're doing it to save money, to improve the client experience, to protect the environment. And if everybody's on board with making it work and have a clear system and clear expectations for how it works, then it's going to be much easier to make that functional.
Of course. And this mainly focused on home delivered meals, which is important because that is the service that would seem to be the hardest to really switch over to those reusable trays. And I think you really laid out a perfect system for that. The congregate meal service is a little different. They would be able to use plates and forks and actually make it look like it would at home, which would be a wonderful customer service tool. I think just making the food look a little bit better when it's actually in a glass plate rather than a little plastic tray. So, what strategies have you seen most effective to improve customer satisfaction when using reusable trays?
Well, first you need to clearly explain to the client that they are reusable and you need to get them back. Because if they're not expecting it, they may just throw them away or put them in their freezer. So clear communication is key. But in general, the clients really appreciate having their food served in real dishes, and I can understand that.
So, and the last question, how can viewers start to implement these strategies with limited staffing? Because, across the nation, we're seeing a lot of limited staffing.
Right. So again, I think if switching the entire program to reusables at once is too intimidating, start with just one route or maybe just one day where you just see how it goes. And this is for home delivered meals. If you start with one route and you just buy the containers that you need for that route and you just see how it goes with getting it back from that one route and washing them and how much time it actually takes and how difficult it is to actually get or easy it is to actually get the containers back, then you can see, okay, how can we start expanding this to the rest of the program?
Course. And doing those small pockets will make a huge difference in those programs. Alexis, thank you so much for this important information. And this provides our audience and the network with the beginning processes of considering reusables for the meal program. And in this evolving environment, our network must continue not only to be nimble in its service delivery, but also business savvy to continue to serve a growing older adult population while controlling the overall cost of services. Many within our network have found business management and cost containment skills can help ensure successful and sustainable operations, which results in more people served while maintaining that higher quality program. I encourage you to visit the Nutrition and Aging Resource Center webpage at acl.gov/senior nutrition. You can click on Browse Resources, go to Business Management, and from there you'll find a library of web pages. And within those, you'll see business skills, contracting, finances, and cost containment, and there'll be more. So in the cost containment page, you will find companion pieces such as fundraising for sustainability, links to using reusable tray guide that Alexis referenced. We do have that up on the resource page now. You'll also find the recordings from this webinar series. Be on the lookout for more webinars in this series coming soon where we focus a little bit more on group purchasing organizations to help contain costs. Alexis, contact is up on the screen and feel free to contact either one of us if you have questions. You'll also see the web address for the Nutrition Aging Resource Center. Thank you for joining us today for using reusable trays to help contain costs. I hope you found the information helpful. Please reach out if you have any questions. Have a great day, and I can't wait to see you at the next chat.